From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I've got a first-time guest coming on. It's David Mondrus of Trive. It's a new sort of concept, a new ICO coming out. Essentially, if I understand it correctly, trying to get rid of the mainstream media, which I'm fully in favor of, and he's coming in from New York. Other than that, though, I don't actually know a lot about it. I just got recommended to him by someone, so I thought I'd have him on and might as well learn about it while I'm doing a video. And so, David, it's great to have you on. But the first question I have to ask you is, how did you become a voluntarist?
Oh, that's easy. I was born in the USSR. All you have to do is experience the communist world for 10 minutes to understand. So but it's actually true, right? So I was born in the USSR, I was raised in New York City, and I still remember enough about life in the Soviet Union to remember how drab it was. We would stand on line because there was a line. You didn't know it was at the end of the line, it doesn't matter, because there was a line, so it was good, there was something there. And so I often tell people, so we weren't poor, right? We were middle class, we were professionals. My uncle was a reporter, but there was nothing to buy. It was like you could have money, but there was just nothing on the shelves. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, but then I was raised in New York City, and I spent the last 30-some-odd years in the .com scene here, starting writing code, starting at 13, and continuing it even until now. I still write code even to this day.
Great. And so you've started something here called Trive. Why don't you let us know what that's all about?
Sure. So Trive is a new crypto startup, and what we do is we kill fake news. So we don't care whether the fake news is mainstream media or clickbait media or alternate media. If they're lying, they don't deserve our traffic. We feel that media at the moment doesn't have the right incentives, that their incentives are not to provide quality, but it is to monetize your attention. And so what we want to do is provide a way for consumers to provide a quality feedback loop back to media to tell them that when they're lying, we're not going to consume it. And so the way we do that is that we source crowds to do primary research on the news story. So think of open source journalism, undercover reporters, people who are doing the research on what's true and what's not true. Then we will compensate them with our own coin, Trive coin. That's the reason for the ICO. We will hash and stash results on the blockchain, so when it's all over, we can store it forever, and you know that our research hasn't changed. The original story research hasn't changed, the score hasn't changed, and we'll monetize the whole thing for $1 a month. And so that's Trive in a short nutshell. In a longer nutshell, what it is a Nash equilibrium engine where all of the participants of the game have an incentive to cooperate together to solve the problem, in this case, finding primary research. And if one of them messes up, then they all lose, right? And that being said, there's a checks and balances mechanism between researchers and verifiers, so that when a researcher does his job, if a verifier feels that they can do a better job than the researcher, they can take the researcher's bounty using an exception process. And so the researchers have an incentive to do the right thing and make sure that they're providing the truth, and verifiers have an incentive to beat the researchers at their own game. So they keep each other in check to make sure that there aren't any lies or bull in the process.
That's very interesting. Obviously, one of the biggest issues out there today is getting the correct information, and I find mainstream media is almost always wrong, but they do have some correct information from time to time. But even the alternative media, it's getting really hard to even tell what's true and what's not. So this definitely seems to be a solution to a definite need. And it's really interesting even to notice that even like the president of the U.S., Donald Trump, is talking about fake news. That's how bad it's getting, that it's, I think it's all on purpose too, to just get people confused and all that, and just put out all this information, a lot of things. And then of course you have just trolls, this whole troll ideology of, let's just screw around with people's lives. It's like, okay. So that's great that you're coming up with a solution for this. Was this something that you kind of had the idea for at a certain moment? Was there a certain like a light switch go off about this idea?
Well, look, so again, right back to the Soviet Union. So we had a newspaper over there called Pravda, which stands for truth, right? And it was absolutely the opposite of truth. And it's funny because, ex-USSR expats, we have a nose for it. And I say to people that We learned how to read between the lines before we learned how to read. And so when the last election cycle was going on, what you could tell was that news stories were being manipulated because media outlets would change their point of view and their position on a particular story simultaneously, right? So different outlets, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, would all come out in the same direction. Now, that being said, the New York Times had to apologize twice for their behavior during the election cycle. And I use this in my presentation. They apologized. First, the public policy editor apologized for poor reporting of Donald Trump. Then, a few weeks later, the main editors come out and say, we want to do a reboot, and we want to be honest with our readers, and we want to provide them with the best service and so on. Okay, let's check with them 6 months later, see how they're doing. They fired the public policy editor. They just eliminated the role. So we don't need you anymore, right? Who needs public policy? And another one is BuzzFeed, right? And so I'm not trying to pick on particular types of media. I mean, Fox has its issues, and alternative media has its issues, without a question. But, it's just, you see it as blatant, you have to say something. So with BuzzFeed, you have a senior editor saying, look, I've been in this business for 15 years. I know what fake news is. We don't do fake news. We're clean. 3 weeks later, MSNBC saying, BuzzFeed, look, you're obviously putting out fake news because it's fake. And this is the left talking to the left. This is not the right trying to... Okay, so you start thinking about it and you start to say, well, what's the problem, right? What's the real problem? Why is it this happening? And then the answer is, well, first, it's an oligarchy, right? So 6 corporations control access to 300 million Americans. And those 6 corporations have interlocking ownership. So if they have a particular media slant, they'll have that slant. Something like 238 executives, media executives, control access for 300 million Americans. That's less than Congress. So, that's an incredible filter. That's San Francisco. One person controls the media access for all of San Francisco. Imagine how insane that is, right? And so they have these interlocking ownerships in this oligarchy, and they don't have incentive to provide good quality. What's the point? As long as they've gotten your attention, good or bad. Right, so Howard Stern had a show many years ago in New York, and his listening time was 2 hours. People would listen to it for 2 hours, and it was insane. It was absolutely crazy. It's 10 times more than the guy before him. And so they asked people. They said, "Well, why do you listen to Howard Stern for 2 hours?" So the people who hated him said, "I hate Howard Stern, and I listened to him for 2 hours to see what he would say next." And the people who loved him said, "I love Howard Stern, and I listened to him for 2 hours to see what he would say next." And that's the lesson that media learned, is it doesn't matter if you provide quality, it just means if you provide content. And we want to fix that. We want to make sure that there's incentive to provide quality. So one of the things that our system does is it basically takes out links that are false. So you can imagine you go into CNN, you have our browser plugin, and the stories that are true are light and easy to see, and they're bright, and they have a score next to them, and it's a positive score. The stories that are hard to see are kind of dim and behind the scenes and really hard to see. And if you turn the dial of the system all the way up, they don't even show up at all. They're not even in your stream. So your attention doesn't see them, your brain doesn't see them, you can't click through to them, so they don't get the money. They don't get to monetize this. And then once we score a story once, the score stays forever, and everybody gets to use the score. So all of a sudden, even clickbait sites, yeah, they got their first 100 clicks, then all of a sudden we figured out that it's BS, and that's it. They're getting no more traffic. Changes behavior.
That's great. So you're launching, I think, in a few weeks. Is that correct?
Right. Well, the pre-ICO starts October 16th. It runs through October 31st. The ICO starts on November 1st and runs through November 30th. Once the ICO is over, we expect to launch the final product sometime middle of next year. We still have quite a bit of development to do, but we do have an MVP coming out in the next couple of weeks, or proof of concept, I should say. And that will give people a feel for what this looks like and how it works.
Yeah, that would be great to see, because it is a little hard to get your head around how it'll all work, and that's what I find with a lot of these things. But we'll definitely be watching the progress. So it'll be a cryptocurrency that. Right. Well, explain to me a bit more how it's going to work for like your average person.
Sure. So it's an Ethereum token. It's an ERC20 token called a Trive token. And it gives you the ability to do two things, two main things. One is it gives you the ability to send stories to the system for us to analyze them and process them. And so the more bounties attached to that story, the more likely it is for someone to pick it up and then work on it. And if you submit a bounty for a particular story and someone else submits a bounty for that story, those bounties add up. So many people can come together and say, this story is important, research it. On the other side, we then give Trive Coin to the participants. So we have 4 participants in the system. curators, researchers, verifiers, and witnesses. And curators have the ability to make a profit. So a curator looks at the marketplace and sees a story that says, let's say, 100 Trive coins bounty. And she knows based on her work that it's going to cost her about 20 Trive coins to complete it. She can bid on the story, and if she wins it, she can make up to 80 Trive coins. The 20 coins that she pays out, she has to stake first, and then she pays them to the researchers, verifiers, and witnesses who don't make a profit. They simply make a salary or an income based on their labor. And then assuming everything goes well, she gets the profit. But if everything does not go well, then the 20 Trive coins that she staked in order to be able to start the process are gone. They're not burned, they're sent to the foundation address, but they're no longer hers. So she has an incentive to complete the work well, quickly, and with high quality.
That's interesting. So who do you think will be the people placing these sort of bounties? Will it be your average person? Will it be sort of journalists who are looking to get some work done? Or how do you foresee that?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned journalists because that's kind of our follow-on use case. So at the beginning, we think it's just going to be regular people. It's just going to be people who see a story and say, that can't possibly be true. And they'll attach a couple of Trive coins to it and they'll send it off. Many people will do that, it'll stack, and then we'll get started. Over time, however, we do feel that we're going to be cheaper and faster than traditional media for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that we don't have a physical plant and we don't have to compensate people on a salary basis that are working on a per-piece basis. And so if we are cheaper and faster, then it absolutely makes sense for them to come to us and let us do the work. And so yes, we feel that in the long run we might end up being the research organization for large corporations, but it's a DAC, so it's not us being the organization, it's all of the people involved in the system.
That's very interesting, and it's particularly interesting that people could, once this gets going, they could be making money by doing this and stuff like that. So a lot of people in my audience might be very interested in that. And of course, we have a lot of alternative media people that are anarchists, voluntarists, people like Luke Rudowski of We Are Change, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, Judge Sigerson of World Alternative Media, and so they'll definitely be interested in or might be interested in getting involved in this in one way or another. So it's very interesting. Is there any other? How else would you sort of explain how people can get involved in this?
Well, sure. So I would love to talk to those folks and have a relationship and a conversation about some sort of a partnership that makes sense. People can get involved by participating in the ICO, by participating in the talk forums, in the Slack groups, the Slack channel, and the various other places. And then over time, by joining in the system, by looking for fake news, and then by doing that, building the reputation score. One of the reasons why we're releasing the token early is because when we get to the final launch, we need people with high enough reputation scores to be curators. Excuse me. And that takes reputation scores. And for reputation scores takes actions. So if you're using the plugin and you're sending in stories and you're communicating and you're doing all of that work, your reputation score increases, and at a certain point you become able to get into the system. The interesting thing is we don't know who people are. We're not collecting KYC AML, right? So we're capping a contribution at 10,000 so we don't get in trouble with the law. But we don't know who they are, and we can't know who they are, because if we know who you are, we can bias the process. So all this is an Ethereum wallet and a reputation score. They're pseudonymous. And I think that's really important. In today's day and age, everybody wants to know exactly who you are and exactly what you do. And if they don't like what you do and they have enough power, they can cause you problems.
Right.
And so what we're trying very hard is to avoid that particular issue.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm so excited about this entire cryptocurrency space, about blockchain decentralized applications. I think it's going to change the world. We have things like Steam out there now, which steemit.com, which really could, it could grow to the point where it sort of takes over things like Facebook and stuff like that. And it's all decentralized, where you can't censor. You're coming out now with this, where it might really force the media to change because of the incentives. And a lot of this is all incentives based. A lot of this is all based in things like Austrian economics and psychology and things like that, but all done without the use of force or violence, which governments do. So it's incredibly exciting, all these sort of things coming out now. So I'm really interested to see how well Trive does once it comes out. We'll definitely be watching it here. Is there anything else about it that we haven't covered yet?
Well, so one of the things that we've done is we want to make sure that that the process is free and clear of any bias, including our own. I don't need someone holding a gun to my head to get me to bias the news. No one needs that headache. So once the DAC itself has a strong enough community and is doing well, and we're comfortable with the software, at a certain point we walk away. It becomes Bitcoin, and we become Satoshi, right? We're no longer involved. We're going to have our own, we're going to have a corporation. The corporation will monetize the feed. The corporation is just basically acting as a consumer seller to consumers of the feed. But the feed itself stands on its own 2 feet. It's open source. It's its own community, its own foundation. And if other people want to either fork it or monetize it, we don't have any control of that. And that's on purpose, precisely because of the reasons that you mentioned. During the Obama administration, there was a project in the administration called Operation Choke Point. And so what they would do is they would call the bank and they would say, this guy, David Mondrus, we don't like him really very much. And, we can't tell you to close his accounts, but if you keep his accounts open, we're going to audit you every single month. It's undue influence. And because of that, many people whose political views, whose jobs, whose lifestyles the administration didn't like, had really serious issues. And you're absolutely right. Crypto is one of the ways that we solve that problem. It's one of the ways that we fix the issue. And I've been talking about the non-financial application of the Bitcoin ledger for now going on 4+ years. I've written for Bitcoin Magazine, and as part of the true interest and trying to move this process forward, my wife and I got married on the blockchain almost exactly 3 years ago. At Coins in the Kingdom, and it was really, really exciting. It was really wonderful, and it kind of showed that you don't need governments to consecrate your marriage. You don't need governments to tell you what the truth is. You don't need governments to hold your money and to tell you that you shouldn't spend that money. That's very dangerous. In the meantime, in the back, we have Nancy Pelosi, who has never made more than $150,000 a year, and yet is worth $175 million. All of it completely legal because Congress writes in a little law that says, insider trading is bad for the rest of you, but for us, that's okay. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why I do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so exciting to me just because most of the people doing all these things are all voluntarists, and they're doing these things not, another word for voluntarists is anarchist, and a lot of people think, oh, those are bomb throwers or whatever, but the true meaning is no rulers. People should not be ruled. People should be free. And the fact that so many of those sort of people are getting into these things right now, and a lot of these things can really just change the world, and they are changing the world. Bitcoin's already changing the world. Things like Steam are starting to change the world. Ethereum's changing the world. That's another sort of anarcho-capitalist based sort of project. So it's incredibly interesting times, and so amazing for me to be a part of it and watching all these things and seeing different people taking different things. So you've decided, okay, there's a real issue out there with not getting access to real information. How do we fix that using the blockchain, using cryptocurrencies, using non-violent means of incentive-based solutions? So yeah, it's exciting times around here, and so I definitely wish you well. Is there anything that we haven't covered on Trive? And if not, let us know where people can find out more information on it.
Sure. So, well, before we tell them the URL, I want to thank my team, who are just absolutely incredible set of zealots, and I use that in a positive way, who really believe in truth and news. And so my CMO, Sam, I'm going to give a shout out to, is the ex-CMO for Ben Swann, Truth in Media. And so, we feel that he's very well positioned to help us, get to where we need to get to. The website is, as always, trive.news, and the ICO is going to be at tokens.trive.news. So visit the URL, buy some tokens, get into the system, and help us kill fake news.
That's great. Ben Swann's a past Anarchast guest, a voluntarist, and of course he's been involved in the sort of fake news, or maybe not fake news, because he brought up Pizzagate, and we haven't really heard from him too much since. I don't know if you have any inside information on what's going on with Ben.
Well, all I can say is that he's alive, he's well, he's working, and we're going to try very, very hard to get him much more visibility and publicity than he's getting now, and that really all depends on how well we do in the ICO. But we're friends. We love the work that he does. And actually, interesting that you mentioned Pizzagate. I was doing the same research as he was, and I actually started before he did. And one of the things that really got to me, and one of the things that led to this is, somebody tweeted about steganography in one of the images. And so for the viewers who don't know, steganography is a way to hide information inside an image. You don't know that it's there, but if you know that it's there, you can find it. And so I was following the tracks of this tweeter about this research, and I couldn't find the image. So I tweeted him back and I said, hey, it's not there. And he said, well, they moved it. They removed it from the system. And then you say to yourself, well, you know, either he's lying or they did. And do they have the capability? Absolutely they have the capability. We know this. Is he lying? Well, he spent a year doing this research and publicizing himself and trying to be, you know, the guru in this field. Why would he sabotage that? And then you go, oh, crap. And that's the reason for the hash and the stash, right? This is the reason why we store it all on the blockchain, and not just our research, but the underlying sources as well. So if they go backwards and they change the sources, you can tell. You know, it's scary, right? So, you know, again, born in the Soviet Union, my uncle was a reporter. He spent 15 years in the Gulag for printing the wrong thing. It really feels like 1984. But Amazon, a few years ago, literally removed the electronic version of 1984 from people who had it in their wallets, who had already bought it because of some copyright violations. You can't do that to a physical book. And with an electronic copy, scary enough, you can actually change it, change the underlying meaning and terms. So again, that's why the blockchain is so important. That's why we hash and stash it, so that even if they change it, we know they've changed it and we know how.
That's great. I like that hash and stash. That's great. And yeah, that is so important. So I wish you luck. We'll have the links to all of the stuff with Trive down below. Check it out. And also check out Anarchapulco coming up February 15th to 18th. We're going to have so many people doing all these kinds of things. And I invite you to come down as well, David. All of the people I mentioned before, Luke Rudowski, Dan Dix, Josh Sigurdsson, all these sort of people from media will all be there as well. And all trying to change the world. Even Dan Larimer of Steam will be there, and he's doing his own thing, trying to change the world now with EOS. So many things going on. It's incredible. I'm so excited about it. Thank you for coming on. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. And that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
In a world where Antifa riots in the city streets, cops rage out of control, and the leader of the free world is a fat-ass casino owner, one event stands alone to make anarchy great again.
I actually love humanity. That is why I'm an anarchist.
Backwards in the building like we the ceiling, we illin'. No matter who find it appealing, I'm here and I got a feeling that we'll be dealing a lot of pain with a penicillin get drilled in your head. That we are monsters and yeah, we come from the slums, and for months we've been pumped, but for once I am now comfortable. I want to grow, I want some more success, and I want to know that greatness can't be rushed, can't be less, so face the bus. Feel free to hate on us, we lace them up. Dudes, we done paid them up. Keep snakes away from us and safe from us, you might wanna be. Remember when clowns used to make fun of me and now they wanna be me, see me and they run at me. I'm gonna be the greatest, yeah I wanna be, but I am not the one to be the fakest for the sake of being played. I'm here like I never left, set to hell. Nah, cause I can't just fail, so just prepare your ears, it'll get for real. Okay, from here, we will never take the sale, it's grind time. My mind and my thoughts, my highs and my faults, my wins and my loss. When will I fall off? It's a test for me. You are now listening to Veracity. Yeah.
Fuck the media, fuck the banks, fuck drone strikes, fuck tanks, fuck hunger, fuck war, fuck ignoring of the poor, fuck the left, fuck the right, fuck the government. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.